this is
Shawn Windsor.
I have a message for everyone in the NFL. Spider-Man sitting on the seat with his helmet way down low. Ain't no sound but the sound of cleat. The line began to roar. Are you ready? Are you ready for this? Are you sitting on the edge of your seat? Come and watch the Detroit Lion that no one seems to beat. Another one bites the dust. Another one bites the dust.
You asked it around your country around my face. It's gone.
What are you doing? What are you doing? Come on.
That is not paid for by them. That is paid for by the people of Detroit.
You are qualified, ML.
I'm not qualified for this job.
Let me tell you something. You want to go right now? Okay? You want to go right now, Al?
Hey kids, it's your old pal, ML Elric, here to say, with a heavy heart, I told you so. Shawn Windsor, who's dialing in, he's graciously volunteered to be our
Told us so what?
our guest, and Marc is here to defend the Wolverines as usual. So that's a pretty familiar scene here. But Shawn and Marc, complicit in this, wanted to just elevate the Lions and talk about the Lions, and it's a different season. And I warned everybody. I said, be careful. It's too soon. And the Windsor
9-4. What are you talking about?
The Windsor curse, they have eked out a win almost every single week since then because Shawn put the whammy on him. He hexed our beloved Detroit Lions.
Well,
they're in Detroit, so I guess I got to take some ownership.
Well, we should bring in our guest today, Shawn Windsor.
Oh, yeah, zooming in from an undisclosed location. Too busy to really, hang out with his co-hosts and partners and friends.
Got a smirk.
Is Shawn Windsor.
Now I'm a co-host and a partner. Okay.
Our valued colleague.
I see how this works. How the heck did I hex anything?
You wanted to just
got off to a good.
You were all excited about the Lions, and it was
everyone's still excited.
It's not that I was excited about the Lions as a fan. I was excited about. I thought it was great that how they were winning and what they were doing and how it was making people feel. The kind of people that the people that we live with, Mike, the people that we work with, the people that are in this community, so to speak. Right? I felt good for them. The people like Marc.
Yeah, I'm still excited about the Lions.
Yeah,
I know you want to.
That's all it was. That's all it was. It's you try to put yourself in somebody else's shoes. You know what I mean? As a journalist,
like that opening song. I remember that opening song from when I was 5 years old. I used to play it all the time. We had the 45. I used to play it over and over and over. Love that song.
When Billy Sims was.
Oh my God, I love Billy Sims.
Free.
Doug English. I love those guys.
Billy Sims was an incredible running back. He just went over guys. He went through them. He was power, man. He was every time he was out there, his jersey when he played for Oklahoma would get ripped because the best they could do is try and grab his tail, and it just wasn't enough. But I have two copies. So
are you
of that
saying
45.
it's over, Mike? Are you saying it's over? Jump off the bandwagon. They're done.
No. I'm just. Some people hate to say "I told you so." I kind of love it.
For
and
what?
So because I referenced this 45 back. They said last time people got this excited about the Lions, they had a great start and then they went off the cliff. It was a disaster after that. That team, I think, ended up, was it like 9-7 after starting 7-2 or something ridiculous? It was just crazy. But Shawn was following the Lions on the road this week, so I guess we can be grateful to the Lions for taking Shawn out of our jurisdiction for a little while. And he was spared a trip to Nebraska to watch the Spartans once again gack. And he luckily wasn't around the Michigan basketball program, so he didn't get punched in the face by the coach, who may or may not have assaulted somebody else. But we have a lot to talk about today. We're calling this episode True Stories because we're telling you some crazy stories that are true and some that maybe aren't true or haven't been proven yet. And I have Shawn has to go, so I may wait till Shawn goes. I have a new Kwame Kilpatrick story that I just ran across, an incredible story that allowed me to reconnect with a couple of old friends of mine, Steve Wilson and Scott Lewis.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and then we also want to tell you and encourage you, at least I want to encourage you, to participate in Whamageddon, which we'll tell you all about a little later in the show, and we'll also tell you how you can prepare for your future by giving our friend Luke Nowacki a phone call at Pinnacle Wealth Strategies, because his job is to take some of those big decisions off of your shoulders, to try and help you get on a path to a secure retirement, to help you manage your money in a logical, analytical, and meaningful way so that you can just earn it, and he can help you figure out how to make it grow. So we'll tell you a little later on how you can connect with Luke and his team at Pinnacle Wealth Strategies, who I'm told was at Killer's Christmas last Friday at the Lodge. I did not see him. I saw Steve Gabbara. I saw Christine Gennari. I saw Eli. I saw a bunch of guys. It was a great night together. Marc was behind the bar. I was behind the bar for a while. We raised $142,000 for children's charities. And as Shawn will point out, so you raised $142,000. Anybody help you with it? A lot of people did. I may have actually kept us from raising more because people left when I got there. But Matt Riley and his team at Killers Cares honoring Tom Kowalski in the best way possible by taking something he started, growing it, expanding it, growing it in terms of money they raise, expanding it in terms of number of causes they help. And everybody who came out there and said hi, thank you very much. It was great to see you in person. And for some people, like, I didn't get to order the merch. In January, we will have a pretty much available on-demand shop opening up. So
I got to say, working behind the bar gives you a new appreciation for going to a bar. You know, when people are at a bar and they get really mad because it's taking forever, you know, trying to get through people to get a drink or whatever. I work on the other side of it because it's fucking overwhelming, man.
Well, I don't know when you took your shift, but I was back there with TJ Lang and trying to get around that guy.
Yeah.
You can tell how he was an all-pro because, you know, Eddie Mio, the old Red Wings goalie, was there too. And I said to Eddie, I said, you know, we need more hockey players back here. We got one football guy back here, and you can't get anywhere.
He's like the size of two Eddie Mios, too.
Yeah.
You don't realize how tall these offensive linemen are until you see them.
Well, that was the other thing when I was thinking about him. You know, he has a huge center of gravity. The guy has got to be 6'4", 6'5". Yeah. How the hell did he just not get rocked off his feet? But he's a big boy. When he turns sideways, he's pretty much going wall to wall. He's a large man.
Yeah, it's a good night. Overwhelming, though, working that bar.
And some people seemed a little overwhelmed because of the libations. I saw Teebs there with his Yzerplan jersey.
So great.
And he was very adamant about some requests for some marketing opportunities. I think he may have, and this I think is a legally binding oral contract. He told me something about ordering 1,000 Soul of Detroit koozies if we make them. So I don't know if you remember that, Teebs, but I got you down for 1,000.
I guess he doesn't.
I think that's half a gross. I have to check with our suppliers. But,
Shawn, why are you limited on time today?
Well, I'm writing for the Free Press, and then I've got to get on the road, get back to Chicago, and catch a flight back home.
Okay.
So,
you're in Chicago still?
I'm not actually in Chicago. I'm in Champaign, Illinois.
It's a very fancy looking hotel room too, by the way.
Yeah, it's just a little. You know, what are you going to do? It's I don't need a fancy place. By the way, I love as usual the preemptive strikes from Mr. Elric. You know, it's like a combination of projection and then preemption. You know what I mean? He just assumes what I'm going to say, and he says it before, you know, whether I'm going to actually ever say anything or not. It's a nice tactic.
I'm just disappointed because, and people don't know this. I don't want to take you too far behind the scenes on the show. If you really want to know what goes on behind the curtain, you're going to have to sign up to be a Patreon subscriber, which we will be rolling out early next year. But Shawn was our employee of the month last month. He was our employee of the month for November. And he was surprised and he was touched. And I swear his eyes welled up a little bit. But once he gets that award, he just starts dialing in. He's like, I guess that's it. I'm done. He's like, he's like Jordan hitting that shot and then retiring.
I didn't know anything about this. Well, yeah, I'm sorry the Free Press is getting in the way of this a little bit today. I do my best. You know, it's like when you go up to Mackinac, the politics call or whatever, your other life calls, right?
No, it's true. But, and again, I don't want to get too
or when
deep
you go to Shetland to bus around and watch them filming a TV show. I mean, I guess
sure. Sure, I don't want to, or to grab a couple pints at the Lodge bar. I don't want to take people too deep into how the show works, but we've been around now for over 230 episodes. There's only 3 of us really, and Joe when he was here, and we try and rotate this Employee of the Month thing. I don't want anybody to feel bad about themselves, but Shawn finally got it, so it's kind of Marc and I have been.
I've never been one before.
He wasn't aware of this, so when we awarded it to him, he's like, "This is great. Is this a new thing we're doing?" Like, yeah, it's kind of something we're just kind of starting. But
our deadline.
No. Let me. So let me tell you. I went to Chicago. Can I tell you why I went to Chicago?
Yeah, and you're going to anyway.
Yeah, we have no choice.
You're probably going to think, oh, okay, for the Lions Bears. Well, yes and no. I mean, yes. They did play at Soldier Field. The Lions lost. But I went there to
another one bites the dust.
What's that?
I said another one bites the dust.
No. I went there because the Lions fans, as Marc will tell you, I don't think Mike knows this, have taken over stadiums all over the country.
Yeah, they look like they did it again this past Sunday.
They did. They didn't have the finish, so it didn't kind of coalesce like it has. I mean, shoot, they went down to New Orleans and went crazy, and they have a great fan base. I don't know if I told you guys this when I was in Tampa when they played, I don't know, 6-8 weeks ago, whenever that was. At the end of the game, the press elevator out of the press box was broken, so we had to walk down, those circular kind of concrete spirals that you go down in those 70s style stadiums. And I was surrounded by the thousands of Lions fans, and they were all singing and chanting and hollering. And I mean, it was just quite the scene. So I saw that in Kansas City, saw it in Tampa. Saw it in L.A., and L.A. doesn't surprise you as much. The fan base is weak, and there's so many expats out there anyway. But we thought, all right, Chicago's our last best chance to go capture some of this. And sure enough, there were Lions fans everywhere. And it started off Saturday night in the bars. I was in a place called the Weber restaurant, right? Because the home of the Weber Grill is outside in a suburb outside of Chicago. So they built this restaurant, and it's full of Lions fans, and everybody's singing and chanting in this restaurant. They're taking over downtown Chicago. Like, oh, this is great stuff. I get up in the morning, I hang out with tailgaters for several hours. I found Marc, you'll appreciate this. I don't know if Mike will. Maybe we'll see where his humanity is.
Well, there you are. There you are.
Speaking of prejudging,
that's projection yourself.
Jeez.
No, I know. I kid. So I'm sitting there talking to a couple from Detroit, decked out, geared off the chains, the buff sunglasses. It's awesome. This guy works heavy power equipment. He's helping to build the Gordie Howe Bridge. The wife is a cook, a chef, and so they decide to splurge. They're going to come see a game. We're sitting there talking, and a couple walks by in Bears and Bear stuff, and they start talking trash to each other. Well, it turns out this guy in the Bears outfit went to Morehouse, and he's from Chicago, went to Morehouse down in Atlanta. It's where he met his wife, and his very best friend was from Detroit, and they had been talking every day basically since they were in their 20s, so 30 years ago. Well, he got sick last year with cancer and died, and he was telling me this story about how they would be talking today, they'd be sitting together, and he felt like the reason they're winning is because his friend is up in heaven, is looking down, and so forth. So I'm collecting all these stories and these generational stories, all this amazing stuff to write about it. But the editor says, and this is a little inside baseball, nobody's going to want to read about that if they lose. And they lost. So I ran up to the press box and caught the game and then wrote 2 football columns and sacked all that other stuff. That's why I was in Chicago.
So, Shawn, as someone who's from the Detroit area and lived in Chicago, did you find that a lot of these Lions fans were living in Chicago? Because if it seems like everybody between the age of 20 and 30 in Chicago is from
somewhere else.
Des Moines, from somewhere in Wisconsin, from somewhere in Indiana, is from somewhere in Michigan. There is this huge Michigan contingency in Illinois, and I would wear my Red Wings gear to go see Blackhawk games, and you would get in fights in the parking lot practically because there was such a vociferous rivalry between the two camps. But I wasn't driving from Detroit to go to the United Center to watch the Wings and the Blackhawks. I was driving from Bucktown. I mean, do you think in particular with the Chicago, the takeover was from people who made the road trip or just pulled their Honolulu blue out of the closet?
So it was a mix. So I did come across people that live in Chicago that were from Michigan.
Because you wouldn't have seen that in New Orleans or L.A. as much, right?
Well, I wasn't in New Orleans.
Or Kansas City?
in LA, there are so many Michiganders out there anyway, right? That's part of the reason University of Michigan picked the Rose Bowl. Their biggest alumni base is out there. Now, a lot of those folks are not from Michigan. They come to Michigan to go to school. But
I think the state outside of Michigan that has the highest enrollment at U of M is California now.
yeah, and that's
Really?
fairly new.
Right.
I thought it used to be New York.
It used to be, yeah. But now it's California.
It did, but California. So just think about it. Yes, you're pointed, but yes, it's absolutely true about Chicago. But Michiganders are everywhere. And I did meet some of those folks that live in Chicago. I met folks, obviously, that came from Detroit. And then it's fun. I met one group that had a pickup truck with a Lions flag flying 15 feet up off a pole. And there were 6 or 7 of them. And one guy had flown in from Colorado, Boulder. He brought the flag. Another guy drove from Mount Pleasant. A couple other guys from the suburbs. One guy from South Bend. Several of them had met at Central, and they were all from various points of Michigan. And they all convened from all over the place. So I've seen that too, where you just kind of convene and they'd not done this before, but because this season has felt so special, where it heads, who knows? But I just thought that was great. I may still write this up once Lions fans have settled down a little bit. They didn't want to read that the next day, right? But I may do that later in the week because they're just good stories. And the fact is, no matter what happens from here on out, the last 2.5 months have been pretty joyful for hundreds of thousands of people in a way it hadn't been in decades.
Shawn,
that is a fact.
How much does readership change whether or not they win or lose, or is it pretty much the same?
It goes down. It goes down when they lose, for sure.
Oh, it goes down.
Unless it's a big game, and people want some soothing, or they want some counsel, or they want to gather and sort of share their collective tears, that kind of thing.
Really, because on this
by and large, losing, you go down.
When you on this end to talk about a game, it's better to talk about them when they lose and what went wrong and everything like that, because misery almost loves company, right? You want to talk about what the problems are.
Or you want to vent.
For sure.
You want to vent, yeah.
I remember hearing Doug Karsh say on 97.1 several years ago, and based on what I'm going to tell you next, you know how long ago this was, that nobody was talking about Spartans football, and they were doing great, but all they wanted to talk about was Michigan football because they were terrible. And Karsh said, well, that's all that anybody's calling about for, is when a team is doing poorly, people want to talk about it. When they're doing well, it's kind of like, cool, great, and it was, it's like this is the public square where people can rend their garments, wring their hands, and, cry for change. But
when you expect,
our readership goes up. Look, our readership this fall has been crazy with the Lions, and it's because they're winning.
Wait, and Michigan too. I think we've put a lot of resources into covering Michigan, not just the scandalous stuff, but the success on the field. And have you seen that's has that coverage been greater than the Spartan coverage? Because certainly if bad news drives coverage, the Spartans should be paying all of our paychecks right now.
The fan base isn't the same. That's part of it. I mean, Michigan always outperforms. I mean, right? It just no, but we have
perhaps on the
SAT.
Have readers.
Yeah, we have readers all over the country. Negative. Here's the thing, man. Yes, losing gets a lot of attention, whether it's a radio or a newspaper or whatever. But it only lasts so long, and then it turns into apathy. And people don't care, and that's kind of what happened with the Spartans, right? People just didn't want to read. Now maybe they wanted to talk about it, but I didn't hear it on talk radio when I check in from time to time, at least about the Spartans. So that only sustains itself for so long. People are only angry for so long, and then they become indifferent. It's what's happening with the Pistons. Like right now, the Pistons stuff is doing really well because people are stunned. They knew they weren't going to be very good, but they just lost their 20th in a row last night. And as long as that NBA all-time record for losing is out there, then people are going to pay attention because it's kind of become a national story within the NBA of how bad they are and all the dysfunction that's going on. But as soon as they get past that record and we're into January and February, and they're just bad, people won't care. They won't.
Well, what is that record, by the way, for losses?
28, 27.
Oh, shit.
In a row?
Yeah, and they're absolutely capable of doing it. I mean, if you look at the schedule.
Why are they so bad? I mean, they have a lot of young talent. Is it coaching?
This is another podcast.
Okay.
Well, they have the highest paid coach in all of the NBA, right?
Yeah.
So
They do. I if I may just pivot here for a second, I want to tell you guys
why you leave, sir.
Why I'm in Champaign. Is that all right?
Well, before you do that, before you tell us about why you're in Champaign, anybody who's listened to the last couple episodes, and we very much encourage you to do so, has got to have one question in their mind that has to be resolved before we go any further. Who had sex in your car? Was it a stranger or a relative? Because every week you bring us
ask me if
some tawdry story about your conveyance that somebody is fornicating.
I do have another story that involves a conveyance
awesome.
and a butt cheek, but
what?
But it's not necessarily.
There's a cliffhanger. Tell us about Champagne. We'll get back to your pressing ham in your Hyundai.
It's not necessarily sexual, though. By the way, speaking of high and weed and all that, I saw one of the greatest signs I've ever seen.
We weren't, but go ahead.
Yesterday. I drove. Champaign is a couple hours south of Chicago, and out in just one of the flattest parts of the country is soybean, corn. This time of the year, when there are no crops, you can just see forever. You can just see the silos out and a little stand of trees with no leaves and a farmhouse. It's got its own kind of rugged, empty beauty to me. Anyway, on this highway, 57 is Chicago to Champaign. Champaign is the home of the University of Illinois, one of the better public schools.
Thanks, Siri.
I'm working on a project that involves the Big Ten and where to eat, food, and kind of memories and all that. So there's a sign on 57. I saw this just coming out of Chicago, and then a couple more times it says, only casserole should be baked. Don't drive high. And I thought, wow, they're using the word baked. So somebody with the Illinois Department of Transportation thought that we should use the word baked. I've never seen anything like that before. Have you guys seen something like that?
I think there's one on like 23 and 94, something about being a little high. I mean, they mentioned being high, which is, a little unusual. But you see buzz too,
Yeah.
But only a casserole should be baked. Don't drive up.
Got your attention. It worked.
When Schaefer was doing his few minutes with, and every week I used to call it Geek of the Week for another reason, but he'd find some unusual person and tell their story. I was trying to get him to do the person who writes the MDOT electronic billboards, because they'd always have stuff like, don't veer for deer because Jesus is near. Or they always tried to have like a funny little play on words that I thought was noteworthy because it showed some cleverness, which you're not used to seeing from the Michigan Department of Transportation, that seems to put roads under construction just when there's high volume traffic. And he never, like a lot of my advice, he ignored it. But I've seen some jocularity in roadside signs. I mean, it does make a difference because it makes you think. And there's a little road that goes from Muskegon to North Muskegon, and they have a sign there that said, and I think I remember seeing these when I was a kid. It said, lots of kids are dying for a drink. And then there's like a skull and crossbones on it. And you're like, well, I could really use a drink. It's like, oh, wait a minute. That's not what they're saying. I mean, I think it's good when it's clever, but not so clever that you become a distracted driver.
Yeah, no. So anyway.
Is that how you end up with your butt cheeks on the window?
Well, no. So the butt cheeks are, okay. I don't know. You guys.
This is your second mooning story in a
row. It kind of is. You moved around. I don't know how much you moved around, Mark.
Speaking of a strange beauty.
Not a lot. Mike did. I did. I mean, it's a military.
Not at all.
And I first came to this area. There's a town just north of Champaign called Rantoul where was an Air Force base. Chanute Air Force Base, been decommissioned. It's not there anymore. My father moved there from Germany. He was stationed. That's why I ended up with connections here. This is back in the 70s. So and then I lived here and went to middle school and high school here for a while in a little town called Mahomet. And so, and I don't get back much. And when I don't have any family here. My dad died here in 93. So what is that? 30 years ago, which is hard to even imagine at this point. But so I get on 57. The minute I get on 57, which isn't very often south of Chicago, you start feeling, right? All these years, all that life, that former life. I obviously think a lot about my dad. And so that's part of it. And I the closer I started getting to the little towns where I would run track or play basketball or whatever that are outside of Champaign, and you start thinking about all the memories. And not to get too sentimental here, but I can remember when I was living in D.C. and I would come here to visit I was living with my mother and I'd come here to visit my father. Sometimes I'd fly to Chicago or South Bend and my grandmother would drive my brother and I down. And one time she missed I was probably 11 and I hadn't seen him in probably close to a year, and she missed the exit. I just fell apart because it was going to be in another 10 minutes, 15 minutes. And, that doesn't seem like much to us, but when you're little,
it's a long time.
You haven't seen your parent. Yeah. No. So I drove by that exit yesterday, and all of a sudden I was 11
Start crying?
again. And no, I didn't. But I was just I remember anyway. So
were you baked?
You know how sometimes no, it wasn't. But sometimes you take those trips. So I go by that exit, and then I get by another exit. And this is where I'm in high school, and I rode with a friend. I don't want to give his last name away. We'll just call him Craig. We went to a high school football game, and on the way back, there was a fan bus. In those days, you could, the whole town would pile into fan buses, and they'd go. They were mostly students. He wanted to moon the bus on the highway, right? So we drive by the bus. He rolls the window down. He pulls his pants down, hangs his butt out the car at 65 miles an hour or whatever, and that's fine. And I was a little. Look. He didn't think that was enough, and he said, "Okay, now it's your turn." I'm like, "Dude, we're driving on a freeway. This is back in the days of bench seats in the front.
Mm-hmm.
So we're in an old Nova." So he says, "No, we can do this." So we switch drivers while we're on the freeway, which is obviously very idiotic. And we slow down and we let the bus pass, and then I do the same thing. It's the only time I've ever mooned anybody in my life. So we do that. We're laughing. We think, whatever, we're just a couple of immature 16-year-olds trying to have some fun out in the corn. And, on a Friday night in October, we get into an exit where Champaign is and where my high school is. And all of a sudden, and we get off. And then there's somebody following us and flashing their lights. And it turns out the bus driver radioed a parent who was far behind, who was like part of the principal's office. And he followed us into a grocery store parking lot and started screaming at us and said, so the next couple of days we had to go into the principal's office. We both got suspended for a couple of days. I got grounded for a month, and my dad took the car away for a year.
What? Did you insist on an ass lineup so they could identify?
But that was one of the dumbest things I ever did. But yeah, no, a year was a little harsh, right? I mean, but who knows? I might have done the same thing if my kids had done that. By the way, this guy
I gotta say, I cannot believe you were suspended for that. If that happened today, first off, it'd be on TikTok or Snapchat. And there'd be a lawsuit over it because you weren't on school time, and there'd be a whole thing. You know what I mean? It's crazy how times have changed.
And that guy too is a good dude. Ended up managing a grocery store. But I came back during the college years when I was in Texas at that point.
I can't believe that guy would do it if the bus phoned me or radioed me.
No, but
sure, I'm on it.
This guy went on to this guy went on to lead like these little cultist gatherings under the overpass, where people would. He'd dress up in a Yoda mask, and everybody would try to do acid and get high and everything, and burn.
Is this Craig?
Create fires. What's that?
Are you talking about Craig now?
Yeah. No, I was hear these stories, and I come back. It's just, yeah.
So
anyway,
you don't want to give his last name because you figure that may derail his career managing grocery stores.
No, I don't know.
Running a cult that did acid under underpasses in no way is going to threaten his future earning prospects. I'm not really sure I follow the logic there.
I don't know what. I don't know what he's doing now, but yeah, no. So that's you guys have those moments, right, where you go someplace and you just triggers all these.
Yeah.
All these kind of memories, both, they're good, bad, I mean, I walked out of a place that I'm going to try to write about, a little cafe that was the refuge for me when my dad was in the hospital and dying. And I hadn't seen that hospital in decades. And I walked out of this cafe and there was a stand of trees and the leaves were down. And I saw this red light through, and it was the top of Carl Hospital, which is the last place I saw him. And I hadn't seen that in probably 20 years at least. And it jolted me a little bit. You know what I mean? It was a surprise. I'd gone into this little cafe. They make their own shakes. They have this old school salad bar that I would escape from the hospital and go get something to eat when he was dying. And it was in a weird way nice to be back there. And then I saw that. So but then you think about Yoda mess too. So it's all mixed. It's all mixed together. Just the craziness.
Do you think it's more dramatic because you haven't been there in a long time?
Yeah. No question. No question.
Because I can still, every time I go through, this is just totally weird, but every time I go through the drive-through of McDonald's at Woodward and 13 Mile, I'm brought back to the day my daughter was born, because that was the first place I went in the middle of the night, because it was open 24 hours to get us food because nothing else was open. So it's like, well, I know that McDonald's, but every time I go through there, I know that feeling of that first day when Charlotte was born. It's weird. And I drive by there all the time, but it's only when I go through the drive-through.
Yeah, no, I have those kind of memories. I'm sure most of us do, right? Sometimes the most obvious one's music, right? You hear a song.
Oh God, yeah. Mm-hmm.
It transports you. But going back to a place that you haven't been in a while, it's amazing the way it transports you. It's really something. And I'm here because we're doing this project about food and where to eat in the Big Ten, and football fans, if they want to come to a game here. So I'm trying to set that up, and I am going to include some of my own life and connection. So it's not just a collection of reviews, but stories that are involved. I don't know how much I'll get into the mooning.
Yeah, when there's the Michigan football playoffs, when you read about them, and then there'll be a city, because my school is pretty small, so we played a lot of small schools around the southern part of Michigan. I'll see these places that I haven't, I don't think of them, and I'm like, oh yeah, I remember playing that school or playing near there, playing there. It's weird how just the name of a city will bring that back. And I've lived here my whole life.
Yeah, no, yesterday I went by an apartment that I lived in the summer with one of my longtime best buds. He's in Texas now. And we moved there because his family, it was mostly, my parents were splitting up. My dad, my stepmom were splitting up, and it was not a pretty scene. And we needed a place. We got this cheap little sublet near the University of Illinois, and I saw that, and I remember this. I don't know if I ever told this story on the show, but this is where I met the dealer, Chocolate Chip. It was.
No, you have not. But I'm all in.
So we're getting a sex and drug story from Shawn. This is a bonus episode.
I love this guy.
We should be charging for this.
And my buddy Andy and I had this. Back in those days, it wasn't legal. And when he wanted to go, we got our weed from a guy who called himself Chocolate Chip, and I don't know. We don't need to go into all that right now. We'll save some of that.
Was he black?
But, yes.
How did I guess?
Was his given name Charles?
I don't know.
I mean, how much imagination went into this nickname? He may be very easy to figure out who he is.
But to your point, to Mike, and you'll like this.
Wait, don't try and drag the story back to me. I want no responsibility for this.
No, but just thinking about music in that apartment, and there was a gal that we kind of hung out for a little bit. She was really cool.
Hung out.
It sounded like passed around. What are you trying to say?
Well, no. She was anyway. I remember going to this
weed and your bare cheeks.
I remember going to this dance back at some, I don't know, city building, and they were playing the Violent Femmes. It was a Violent Femme cover band, maybe, or something. But did you ever like the Violent Femmes? Because I was thinking about you yesterday when my brain got to that dance driving around, and we've never talked about the Violent Femmes. I don't know if you like that kind of stuff.
Yeah, I went to go see him at Meadowbrook, and I've always felt like I missed my opportunity to be in a band, and I blame myself for not taking the lesson from Gordon Gano from the Violent Femmes is if you can't sing and you can't play an instrument, you can still make very, very good music. It's sort of an amazing thing when you first heard him. You're like, this guy is utterly untalented, but I can't stop listening. It's some of the best music ever. They
voice, man.
Yeah, he just gives you license to do your thing. I mean, it's pretty wild. So, Shawn, that's quite a trip there. You packed a lot into that sojourn to Illinois for a sad story for the Lions, but then a little reminiscing with some
ham and chocolate chips.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, ham and chocolate chips. And I am going to get to that for our listeners. I am going to try to write that story about the Lions fans and kind of taking over Soldier Field. A sad ending, but still, for Saturday night and 4 or 5 hours Sunday morning, or 6-7 hours before the end of the game, they were feeling something they haven't felt in a long, long time, like they have all fall in these cities. So I think that's worth trying to capture.
Hey, are there deadlines still in newspaper writing? I mean, are they different now since everything's immediate and constantly published?
No, the print deadlines are still the same, more or less. We have digital deadlines that are, and they're not hard and fast, but they kind of are, So if you have to, like right now, I'm trying to finish something up, but that may go digital. We'll see, but you have to file at the end of the game in a way you didn't used to have to, because you had time before the print deadline. Now they just want the deadlines right away because they want it up.
Yeah,
they want it up right away. Yeah,
yeah. So for SEO, first person up on stuff kind of owns the story. Like if you get it up immediately, then Google search will keep bringing people back to your story. So it's very important to be the first person to file.
Oh man!
But then so the print deadlines. I mean, how many? Probably don't have a ton of people who subscribe to the newspaper, but how many times do you pick up the paper and it says this game ended too late for the final score? Yeah. Please check our website. The way it used to work is, and Shawn, correct me if I'm wrong here, but the beat writers would write sort of a placeholder where it might be a feature about some guy, like maybe the backup catcher went to a children's hospital or he just got a new mitt. And it would be something that would go in the early edition that you'd get in the UP and up north. And then we'd have editions that roll throughout the night. And so if you were in the city of Detroit, you might get news that was fresh up to like 2 a.m. And they would just redo the paper. They'd reset it and put a new plate on there. And it even got to a point where the very, very last edition, they would change it when they put the last roll of paper on the printing press, because if they stop the presses to change the plate, it puts them behind, it costs some money. But if they're going to change the roll on the printing press anyway, they could put a new plate up and start printing a new front page or new inside page. And that would happen all the time. Now those features that were placeholders, that may be the only thing you see. And then game coverage. I mean, I read the paper where it's like through 2 periods, the Red Wings were looking pretty good. To find out the rest of the game, go to our website. I'm like, that's crazy.
Wow.
But we
sports print does not suit where we're at as a society at all. Can I just say? Let me just say this too about my father. I've been thinking about this. I didn't get in trouble for mooning, and I don't know that I would have punished my kids for that. I got in trouble because we switched drivers on the freeway. That's why I got grounded. He took the car away. Right? I mean, that's really.
Wait, how'd they know you did that?
Because they figured out that people on the bus figured out that
there were two different butts
hanging out. Yeah,
your butts differed that much.
Yeah.
And they could see that the drivers were different.
Is that okay? Why did you get suspended from school though?
It was all caught on a Ring doorbell camera.
We got suspended.
Which used film back then.
The suspension wasn't long. It was, but we got in trouble with the school because we mooned the bus. I got in trouble at home, not for being a prankster like that, but for being stupid and switching drivers.
It's funny that
if it had just been one moon, I don't think I would have gotten in trouble at home at all.
It set you on the straight and narrow. You never mooned again.
It's like a bad Tom Petty album, 2 Moon Fever.
No, but then my stepfather moons.
That's right.
A couple of a year later. Yeah. I'm like, oh my God, I just got busted for this, and now here's this war vet mooning,
And he had to climb over you too, which is just as dangerous as switching seats. So come on, you should have grounded him.
Yeah, my dad. It's funny, they were both in the military, but they cared about different things.
While we're going through memory lane, we should probably get a bell for Shawn sex and car stories, so that we
I can't believe there's probably more that we just don't know about,
so that we warn people that they're coming.
You'll love them.
But I was working on this week's column, and I was running through an old sentencing memorandum for Bobby Ferguson, and it talked about all the stuff that he had done. And this is when he was convicted after the big Kilpatrick trial. And when the prosecutors put together a sentencing memorandum, what they do is they lay out not only why they want to justify their sentence based on what was proven in court, what a jury decided somebody was guilty of, but they can also kind of throw everything in that maybe didn't become a part of the case. So that's where you'll hear somebody say, in addition to all these things that we discussed in court, they did this, that, and the other thing. And defense attorneys often feel like they're piling on and that they're trying to sneak some stuff in that they couldn't prove in court. But it's kind of everything but the kitchen sink goes into these things. So I was reading this Ferguson sentencing memorandum, and here's my cliffhanger. If you want to know why, read this Sunday's Detroit Free Press. But there was a mention that how Ferguson had such influence in the mayor's office. And this is a passage from the sentencing memorandum. It says, on another occasion, in February 2006, a television investigative journalist was pulled over by officers from Mayor Kilpatrick's Executive Protection Unit. At the time, the journalist was following Ferguson as part of a story describing favorable treatment Ferguson was receiving in Wayne County Jail following a conviction for pistol whipping one of his employees. Toll records around the time of the police stop show calls between Ferguson, Mayor Kilpatrick, and Mayor Kilpatrick's Executive Protection Unit suggesting their coordination in the stop of the reporter. So Bobby had such sway with Kilpatrick that he could say, hey, Kwame, it looks like somebody's following me. Can you have your cops, who are only supposed to be protecting the mayor, go and pull him over?
Yeah, I didn't know they could even do that.
And shake him down. So, and the story that and I'll tell you who was working on it in a minute. The story they were working on is that Bobby was doing some time because he had pistol whipped an employee, and he got a fairly light sentence given the gravity of the crime and given his criminal history or his violent history. And he got work release where he could go and run his businesses and stuff. And eventually the work release went from going to work when you had to work to being 20 hours a day that you didn't have to be in the halfway house. And he was going back and he was reporting in that he was drunk. You know, they were finding he was drunk when he came back. And so basically he was living his life and then clocking in for 4 hours at a halfway house. So a reporter was following. They got a tip on this and they were trying to track Bobby's comings and goings to demonstrate that he really wasn't being incarcerated or in fact punished at all. And so, you know, generally you try and be careful when you're surveilling somebody, but sometimes you get spotted. In this case, they did get spotted, and Bobby called Kilpatrick to get the flies brushed off of him. So I read this and I was thinking, oh, God, maybe it was Steve Wilson, because you may remember
he was
when
all over him,
Channel 7 in the post-Wilson era was digging into Bob Ficano, and they had Ross Jones and some other people and maybe Heather Catala was in on it too, had been surveilling Turkia Mullen and Azam Elder, who were the two top aides to Ficano, and had found them in the front seat of a SUV right after some bad news had come down, and they were kind of consoling each other. And when the feds indicted somebody, in their indictment, they wrote, you know, so-and-so and so-and-so were spotted in the front seat of an SUV as depicted by television news reporters, and you could kind of reverse engineer it and figure out what was going on. It was really a very telling detail. So in this, I thought, well, it had to be Wilson because he was the king of this kind of stuff. And so I talked to Steve yesterday, and he's in Florida. He had a health scare, but he's doing well, and he's still as passionate about being a watchdog as ever. And he said, I don't think that was me, but let me check with Ross. And I thought back and said, well, February 2006, I had just gone to Channel 4. It wasn't me following him because I would have remembered being stopped by the cops. It wasn't Dietz, because if Kevin Dietz had been stopped, we would have talked about that in our office. So I said, well, if Wilson doesn't remember, I said, well, let me call Scott Lewis, because Lewis was also, you know, even before Wilson was here, Lewis was following people and catching them doing things they weren't supposed to do. I think everybody's seen those stories of the water department guys asleep in their van and, you know, Lewis knocking on the door and say, hey, what? Those great pipes. Well, what are you doing sleeping in the middle of the day here? Shouldn't you be doing some work for the city of Detroit? And I called him, and he's in Florida too. And he said, yep, that was me. That was me.
Really?
We had heard about Bobby. We were trying to compile our story, and we got pulled over by the cops, and he said, but I didn't realize it had made it into some federal records. But yeah, they stopped us and asked us what we were doing, and and that was that. And like,
So did he ever? I mean, what happened then? Did he finish the story? Why wasn't that part of the story? Could that not have been part of the story?
well, because
or its own story?
a lot of the times when these things happen, you don't know about them, and I suspect.
Yeah, but if he got pulled over by the Executive Protection Unit.
Sure. So I don't remember Scott's story, but he may have mentioned that. I imagine that's how the feds knew about it, because oftentimes, and there's a lot of really good federal investigators out there, so don't take what I'm about to say wrong, but one of their greatest tips for stuff is what they read in the media, and they start asking people questions. And when they sit down with somebody, they'll have like a stack of clips, and they'll show them an article, and they'll have something highlighted, and they'll say, what do you know about this? And if you say, I don't know anything about that they turn the page. They go, what do you know about this? They go, oh, I know a little bit about that. Okay, let's talk about that for a while. And when Lewis busted Lonnie Bates for sending his daughter or his girlfriend's daughter to college and paying for it, and then he did something else. He went on a radio show. I think Lonnie went on a radio show and defended himself. And I can't remember why Scott and his team were out there, but they saw the FBI go in there to get recordings of what Lonnie had said on the radio show, because they were going to use that to try and impeach him. When that came out, I remember thinking, well, the feds really appreciated Scott's work, so they called him and said, if you have a camera at such and such a place, you may see something interesting. That was always my theory. And then I talked to Scott years later when we weren't competitors anymore, and he said, no, we just happened to be there. We were wondering what was going to happen. I think they may have been waiting for Lonnie to come out, and the feds were like right there to get a recording. So sometimes it's just kind of serendipitous. But yeah, the only way the feds would have known about this EPU thing is from watching the media. And then they would have done their homework and said, well, let's get the phone records, let's get the run logs and everything and put it together. So, not really a crime, but just part of the case they were making, that the relationship between Ferguson and Kilpatrick and Christine Beatty and other people in the mayor's office was so tight that they could basically use the mayor's personal police protection team to do his bidding. And when people wonder just how bad things had gotten in the city of Detroit with the corruption and with the perversion of public resources, this is just one of those little stories that drives home that this city was being run like a fiefdom. This is the kind of thing that you would expect to happen in a place that isn't a democracy. And it's just, I know there are lots of people who are like, well, Duggan should be doing 28 years. Why don't you guys bust Duggan? Well, we don't have as many reporters working on it, but we never hear of anything like this. I mean, this is just outrageous.
Maybe he's better at covering his tracks.
Well, Bob Carmack found something.
That's true.
And Bob, by the way, I was talking to Bob a couple weeks ago. He's supposed to be back in court for a drunk driving case that he caught a collar, and it's kind of an interesting case. He's defending himself without even having.
He caught a collar.
He caught a collar.
I like that. Your
a little alliteration.
Your skinny tie.
That's right.
Kind of goes with that word,
And if you become a Patreon subscriber, you'll see the skinny tie.
Were you an extra in LA Confidential?
Oh, wouldn't that have been cool?
You would have loved to.
Yeah.
The best part of LA Confidential is that there really was a guy named Johnny Stompanato. He's a real character.
Oh yeah.
And he was dating Lana Turner. He was a notorious LA gangster, a muscle guy for, I think, Mickey Cohen. But anyway, I completely lost my. Oh, Bob Carmack. So Carmack's defending himself. I said in the first day of the trial, and then things, as often happens with Bob, got weird and it got hung up. He was supposed to be back in court, but now he's trying to get the case delayed indefinitely because he thinks he may have only a few months to live. So So pretty interesting case there from someone who uncovered some
Shawn needs
malfeasance.
Shawn needs to bid us adieu. His
Okay.
computer's about to die and he's on deadline.
Oh, wait. Hey, yeah, Shawn.
He forgot to bring his charger. Although that fancy hotel, why don't you call down on the front desk? They probably got one.
You think a courtyard's a fancy hotel?
It just looks nice where you are. It looks like a new courtyard.
Perhaps one of the
It's not.
one of the truckers or the lot lizards out there can lend you some sort of a battery pack.
Just show me your butt.
Yeah.
By the way, if you do come down to Champaign, anybody, the best deep dish pizza in the whole state is here. It's called Papa Del's. I'm going to give them a plug. I've been eating it for 30 years.
Did you get it for free?
No. But they make here's the kind of pizza place it is. They make their sausage from scratch. Just to put it on this deep dish.
Is it Chicago style or is it?
It's Chicago. It's Chicago style. They have thin crust, but it's Chicago style. If you like that,
I don't like.
Are you saying this out of sentimentality? Or is there something about it that makes it better?
I ate it last night, and I'm going to write about it. But no, it's unreal.
I've eaten a lot of
gem. People come to this restaurant from Chicago.
Okay,
which is funny.
So tease us a little bit. I mean, we'll still say we're going to read your column, but I've eaten a lot of Chicago style pizza.
Right
but
now.
what sets it apart from Eduardo's?
They make their own sausage.
Or,
it's just it's the toppings. I mean, if you like sausage, for me, it's the sausage. The dough and the crust is just. It's a perfect balance between. I mean, it's got some chewy like you want in a deep dish in the dough, but also crunch on the outside, so it's not totally soggy. Yeah, and the sauce it's just a really simple, fabulous marinara. I mean, look, it's all subjective. I get it. Our taste buds are all different, but it's shockingly good deep dish pizza in this little farm town down here.
Although you have rosemary in the marinara?
It's a college town surrounded by a lot of farmland. It's not a farm town.
Are you going to bring us some back?
I wish I could.
Why can't you?
I wish I could. If I brought you anything back, I'd stop at a place called Smoke, spelled with a Q, in Chicago. They have incredible barbecue.
Didn't he have to go?
Just laughing at it. You could just say one word to him, and his head just fires off a memory.
Yeah.
You ask about bringing something back. That's what I'd bring you some barbecue. I'll make you some barbecue this summer. All right.
I'm still waiting to get my green jacket back.
All right. Safe travel, Shawn.
Deep cut.
All right, that was fun. All right, thanks for having me.
Oh man, the geeks.
Boy of the month, Shawn Windsor, trying to go back to back.
Does him wanting to play with us again mean that he's turning into a geek, or we're turning into cool guys?
We've talked about it before on this show that there are just some things that you think you're making a point and you invoke some history or some cataclysmic event to drive home your point, and it just, depending on what you pick, it's never going to work out for you. You know, anytime you're trying to make a point and you bring Hitler into it, it's just never
not going to win with that.
Ever going to work. You've lost the argument the minute you start to form the H in your mouth. It's just over. You should stop. But people still do it. Well, Bills coach.
Oh, Jesus, yeah. Yeah.
Bills coach Sean McDermott has entered into the pantheon of shit that is just not going to make the point you're trying to make, no matter how apt you think it is. He has been apologizing for the last couple of weeks because a year or so ago, he was trying to make a point to his players that
it was a year ago?
Yes, I
did not know that part of the story.
Oh yeah, no, it just came out.
Oh, crap.
It just came out, and what he was trying to do.
Why did it come out?
Yeah, that's a good question. Oh no, sorry. This came out at a team meeting 4 years ago.
4 years ago.
This happened 4 years ago.
This is even dumber then.
So I don't know how this bubbled up, but he's been apologizing to the public. He's been apologizing to the team. He had a second team meeting to apologize. And this was it came up on the Substack page of an NFL writer named Tyler Dunn, who cited numerous unnamed sources, none of which who must be very happy with McDermott.
Yeah.
But apparently during a meeting in training camp in 2019, he was trying to drive home to the team that we need to work together. We need to coordinate together. And the example he used was the 9/11 hijackers because he said the hijackers were a group of people who were able to get on the same page to orchestrate attacks to perfection, which is, I guess they were.
No, I got to
they were pretty coordinated.
No, see, I disagree. I don't think they were because remember, they didn't complete their objective. Another member didn't even get on any of the planes. So it's not a good analogy, regardless of the fact that how many Americans were killed in a terrorist attack.
And
they did not complete their objective.
And of course, the passengers who
you got to play all four
plane
quarters
down.
That's what I mean.
You're going to McDermott land now, all four quarters. I don't know. But yeah, so
that's another good point. He could have used the people on United 93 as working together.
Yeah, why not?
That they saved lives by taking their own life.
Yes, thank you. Exactly. There's the analogy you want to use.
Which I don't even know if I want that analogy, right? Because.
Well,
I remember Kellen Winslow Jr. talking about being a soldier in the middle of a war too, and it's like not the right time, maybe.
This is the same guy who was naked on a motorcycle and then later accused of rape and everything. Yeah, I guess if he thinks it's a good example, it's probably not.
But
since
people need to remember sports
is
a game and it's not life and death, and maybe that's not the best analogy to use.
Well, what do we have about a couple months after 9/11, we're going to stop referring to athletes as warriors and soldiers, and this is a battle, and that they're out for glory. And now it's like, look at those warriors out. How quickly we forget our resolutions. But at any rate,
I didn't know it was 40 years ago.
4 years ago, yeah. Somebody dropped a dime on him, and now he
apologized.
Well, the other thing may be that the Bills are not doing really well this year. And so maybe somebody's had this in their back pocket, and this is my...
if you ever needed a win...
This is my time bomb. I'll blow up McDermott.
You should send Tony from Kansas City a thank you note for being offsides. So they could get that win.
Yeah.
Because my brother was asking me about Juwan Howard, and I said, well, the rumors, this and that. I said, as long as he wins, he'll be fine. Because that's really all that matters in sports is whether or not you win.
I think another head coach at Michigan has proven that this season for sure.
Well, he didn't do anything wrong either.
Well, he did admit
what?
His own team, suspended him for lying and for other stuff. But at any rate, we don't want to delve too deep into the blue and yellow. But yeah, so Shawn McDermott. What was it?
Huh?
I thought it was corn.
Maize blue. What's going on?
Shawn McDermott. It's all corn to me. Shawn McDermott, you're our geek of the week.
Me again.
There's an all-night party in room 7609. And you can dance together all night if you've got the time.
Since Shawn isn't here to throw shade on great music or great Americans, we want to tell you about a great American, a fella named Luke Nowacki, who can help you make your future feel like a great new wave tune, something that at one point you said, I'll never forget this, and I'm going to tuck it away so that later on I can take it out and enjoy it and relax in my golden years. And that's what new wave music is to me. But I also value the advice of a very smart man who's going to work hard to make sure that I don't blow the many hundreds of dollars I make as a podcaster.
Well, how many people realize, too, if you're sitting on your hundreds of dollars and say it's just in savings and it's not making any money, that you're actually losing money, right? Do people
opportunity
realize
cost?
Well, and inflation, and if it's the money doesn't grow, you got to make it grow for you, and that's what Luke can help you out with.
If you put it in a IRA, but you don't put it in a Roth, I mean, there's all this. There's the reason why there's a 401k is not something that somebody came up with because they thought it sounded cool. It's actually something in tax law, and I don't know what it is. I don't know why they picked those numbers or letters. I have no idea. But you know who does? Luke Nowacki.
Yeah, so give Luke a call. He's going to find out if you're on target to meet your goals. His phone number is 248-663-4748. It's a free consultation, and then you can come sit down and meet with him and talk money with him. Once again, 248-663-4748.
Because when you call Luke, He'll make it all about you, sweetheart.
Securities and investment advisory services offered through
Mosaic Wealth.
Inc. Member FINRA-SIPC.
Mosaic Wealth.
Inc. is separately owned, and other entities and/or marketing names, products, or services referenced here are independent.
Mosaic Wealth.
Inc.
So I still want to talk about Whamageddon.
Oh yeah.
But before we get to Whamageddon, let's play some music that you probably have never heard before, but you wouldn't avoid if you appreciate a great new wave band fronted by women that didn't last very long, but they made their mark. This is the Cosmopolitans with How to Keep Your Husband Happy.
Shake up, burn up, burn up, turn up, turn up with Debbie. Shake up, burn up, turn up with Debbie. Did the jump, shake up, did the spin, burn up, did the touch your toe, with Debbie. Did the jump, shake up, did the spin, burn up, did the touch your toe, with Debbie.
Checklist for keeping your husband happy. 1. Firm and graceful body.
2. Be at home when he
If
arrives.
you must work, try to arrange it so you're home first.
3. Clothes sexy for your evenings at home.
4. Be interested in him and the things he does.
Shake up, burn up, turn up with Debbie. Shake up, burn up, turn up with Debbie. How to keep your husband happy with Debbie. How to keep your husband happy. Turn up with Debbie.
5. A good conversationalist.
6. Bright smile over morning coffee.
This paints a good mental picture of you for the whole day.
7. Nice voice.
Keep it soft and musical, also a pretty laugh.
8. Excess fat.
Kaboo!
Debbie says jump, Debbie says jump, Debbie says bend, Debbie says bend, Debbie says touch your toe, Debbie says touch your toe. Debbie says jump, Debbie says jump, Debbie says bend, Debbie says bend, Debbie says touch your toe, Debbie says touch your toe. Shake up, Debbie says bend, firm up, Debbie says touch your toes up with Debbie. Shake up, Debbie says bend, firm up, Debbie says touch your toes up with Debbie.
9. Well set hair.
Brushed and clean.
10. Mentally alert.
Try reading.
11. Pin curls.
If they are a must, pin up after the lights are out and wear a bed cap.
12. A regular manicure.
13. A weekly pedicure.
Shake up, burn up, turn up with Debbie. Debbie says jump, Debbie says bend, Debbie says touch your toes. Try to keep your tongue up, touch your toes. Turn up, touch your toes. Shake up, how to keep your husband happy. Touch your toes. How to keep your tongue up, touch your toes.
Wow. So last week when we played Nervous Rex, Shawn said, it sounds a little bit like REM. And I want to come back to that in just a second. But when you listen to this, Marc, what band do you think of?
B-52s maybe?
Exactly.
Yeah, the voices.
Yeah, and it's just that kind of staccato.
Yeah,
and,
it got a little weird in the middle there.
Well, so this album, How to Keep Your Husband Happy, is based on a video, or but probably wasn't a video back then. It may have been an LP that one of the singer's mothers had from back in the 50s. It was a very popular LP that women would buy and get tips from some advice maven on how to make their husbands happy. And when you listen to the song, it talks about, be interested in what he's saying, ask him about his day, lose weight, clean the house, and all this other crap. And so the Cosmopolitans turned it into basically a parody song because they started off as go-go dancers that would almost be a sideshow at, they all went to University of North Carolina, Chapel Hill, home of Michigan State's new president. And they also would hang out at CBGB's in New York. So when bands would have shows, they'd kind of be, I guess, like an added feature. And then somebody said, well, why don't you guys sing some stuff? So here's the REM tie-in. The guy who used to help them with production and would play some guitar with them is Mitch Easter, who was a big figure in REM's career, behind the scenes guy. And, of course, REM was Athens, Georgia, not Chapel Hill, North Carolina. But Mitch Easter, I guess, kind of went up that southern East Coast playing new wave music and influencing bands. So he is one of the few male members of the Cosmopolitans. But Shawn's not with us, but maybe he was anticipating this week's entry in room 7609 with the REM.
Whatever happened to the females of the band?
So they kind of went their separate ways, and then another woman came in to take the place of one of the women, and one of the women got
They ever get married?
to each other.
No. Just in general.
Oh, you mean so they could see if they really learned about how to keep their husband? I don't know. I'm not sure I want to touch that one. But one of them got this virus and was really sick. It's EBV or something. It's apparently we all have it. And like 90% of the population has a trace of this in us. And we've all had it, but our body has stopped it. And somehow it's cured itself, and we carry this with us. They have no idea how to vaccinate against it, even though they keep researching it. And researchers believe that it is one of the triggers for multiple sclerosis, and that it also leads to a lot of different cancers.
Oh, that's fun.
So
that's nice to know.
Science Tuesday. But this is one of the reasons why the band kind of broke up. She must have had one of the manifestations that her body couldn't control. But then they did kind of come back together and do a few shows in the early 2000s. And Mitch Easter came out and played guitar for them. And I think they had a compilation or reunion album, and they found the video that goes with this song that apparently they had recorded, I'm sure, on some huge Betamax camera. And I think there was also some other videos that they put together that they found from an appearance on the Uncle Floyd show, which apparently was one of those kind of underground or maybe cable access shows that circulated for 20 years that unless you lived in a certain part of the country, you never heard or saw before. But yeah, that's the Cosmopolitans with How to Keep Your Husband Happy.
Cool song. A little bit of a novelty, but...
Yeah, I mean, and that's the kind of band that, unlike... Well, that's the other thing about the B-52s. They're kind of a kitschy band, but they've sustained it and maintained it for 50 years, more than 50 years, I think. You wonder how they did, because while this is kind of a fun little tune... I'm not sure I'd want to have 10 or 12 Cosmopolitan albums, but having said that, I'll listen to everything the B-52s have ever put out. I don't know why one is. It's sort of like
as a Fred.
It's sort of like and it's sort of like they said in Spinal Tap. There's such a fine line between stupid and clever. Maybe these guys are on the stupid side of that line, and the B-52s are on the clever side. Wham! Again, we got to talk about this. I wouldn't necessarily say Wham is a new wave band, but there's this movement that started several years ago. It was started by a couple guys in Europe. I'm going to get thrown out of the EU for this. I can't remember whether the guys who started it were Dutch or Danish, and I imagine...
Oh, come on. The fact that you would even care about the difference, you'll be fine.
Okay, they're Danish. Well, I'm sure if you walk up to somebody in Norway and say, hey, so how are things in Stockholm? They get really offended. Like, this is Norway, that is Sweden.
Yeah, but we're not there.
Okay, but we'd have a big worldwide audience. I want to make sure that anybody listening on the other side of the pond isn't offended.
So what do these Dutch or Danish people do?
So about 18 years ago, some friends started this little thing where they all took a pledge to do their best to not listen to Last Christmas whenever it comes on the radio. And so they have a Facebook page with more than 16,000 followers, and their website got more than 500,000 visitors last year. And the whole thing is you have to pledge that when the Christmas music is inundating us, which it has been since Easter, that you will not listen to Last Christmas by Wham, and I am happy.
Just the Wham version, because there's a billion versions of it, including my 9-year-old told me that Taylor Swift does that song. It was playing the other day on the Google machine. I was like, hey, do you like this one? You know, I just asked her about all the Christmas songs. She's like, I don't like this version. I like Taylor's version. I'm like, what? She has a version of this stupid song?
I would never stand against Taylor Swift. That's like trying to hold back floodwaters. There's no way. If Taylor's doing it, that's fine.
I guess. She can do no wrong, apparently.
And it is Whamageddon. It's not Swiftageddon.
What about Carly Rae Jepsen? She covered it too.
Oh, did she?
Call Me Maybe. Yeah.
Oh, I feel very comfortable standing strong against Carly Mae Jepsen. That's and Miley Cyrus for that matter too. I just don't.
And Ariana Grande covered it too. And the cast of Glee. I can't believe how many people have covered this damn song. I hate it.
I am a big fan of the first couple of seasons of Glee. Although I heard that Mr. Shu got canceled.
I don't know what that means. I've never seen Glee.
Really?
No.
Okay, so I got 2 daughters, so I watched a lot of it. It's actually a pretty good show.
Well, have you seen the Wham documentary? Because they cover Last Christmas in the Wham documentary.
Oh, no, but you told me Andrew Ridgeley comes off pretty well.
Well, I mean, he produced it, so of course he's going to come off well. But that part of the documentary is really interesting because they did Last Christmas. It was, I think, #1 for, a month or more. And as they're recording it, that's when George Michael gets the call to, hey, can you be on this little charity album, the Do They Know It's Christmas? Ooh. And he's like, God damn it, because this was going to be their big Christmas song.
Right. He didn't want to compete against himself.
He didn't want to compete with himself. But he did it anyway, and I believe Last Christmas was #1 until Do They Know It's Christmas comes out, and it bumped it off. And he's like, I guess it didn't get much airplay until years after that when people brought back Last Christmas.
Well, talk about a moral dilemma because you've got your song going up against another mega hit.
Yeah, charity
and
one. Mm-hmm.
One of them you're getting money from, and the other one you're giving all the money away.
Yeah.
Man, that's
documentary is actually it's pretty fun. I think you'd like it.
That's
it's
tough.
on Netflix. Mm-hmm.
Well, obviously it's never a bad time to talk about Morrissey when you're in room 7609. And
did he ever do a Christmas song?
No.
About how bad it is?
But he said that Do They Know It's Christmas was absolutely tuneless and an awful record considering the massive talent involved. And this is the penultimate put down. He said, one can have great concern for the people of Ethiopia, but it's another thing to inflict daily torture on the people of England, which is about as sick a burn as you'll ever get, even from the Burnmeister himself. So if you have a great song for Room 7609, please send it to us at mlsoulofdetroit@gmail.com. Also send us your comments. We did mention, partly to placate our incumbent employee of the month, that we would expand Room 7609 next year to allow other people to bring in, any people to bring in deep cuts that are not necessarily new wave. It was a concession I made at the barrel of a gun. And Dave writes, and did I hear correctly the show will be moving beyond new wave for Room 7609? I have some great suggestions of offbeat deep tracks of popular bands. If this is true, I'm bursting at the seams. So Dave, hold it together a little bit longer, but yes, please, we want your suggestions for Room 7609. So keep them coming at mlsoulofdetroit@gmail.com. We also are happy to take your donations. You can go to our website and hit the donate button. You can donate by PayPal or Venmo. Nobody did this week, but we're hoping that somebody will this week, next week, or maybe this is a great chance to get in that last donation before the end of the year for your taxes. Of course, it's not tax deductible, but if it makes you feel better to make a big donation before the end of the year, we're happy to help you with that little bit of burden.
Everything's deductible until you get audited.
Oh, that's true too. And we will give you a perfectly worthless receipt that you can take in there and have the IRS laugh at you, unless it turns out they're a fan of the show, in which case they will give you a knowing nod, a wink, and the Soul of Detroit secret handshake, and you will walk out of there with nothing to fear. So yeah, what's to lose? One piece of feedback this week from Michelle, who says, hey guys, this sharp kid was a recent guest of yours. Alex is pumping out award-winning investigative articles. This is Alex Walters, who's a reporter at the State News. He has not been a guest of ours. You may be thinking of intern Al, But this kid is knocking out some great stories at the State News. He's also working with me on a student investigative reporting project I have called Eye on Michigan. We should have a big story coming out soon. More on that when it's ready to go. And he says, Michelle says, is there a prestigious award when the kid is merely a college student? Yes, there are. And they are, some are given out by the newspaper, some are given out by college journalism associations. But the story that Michelle is raving about is Alex wrote about a piece in the State News in which a student was told to trust MSU with her report of a rape, but was then disbelieved. So you should definitely check that out.
It's one long, well-researched story. It is long.
Did you read it?
I started and I'm about, I would say, well, I think I'm 25% of the way through.
Yikes.
But it is long.
Well,
good for him, man.
These are twisted tales, but Alex is a pretty good reporter. We
need more of them.
We'll try and get him on the show one of these days. But if you have feedback, please send it to us too at mlsolvedetroit@gmail.com. And of course, you can always post a comment on Twitter at Elric. You can put something on our Facebook page, which is just ML Elric, no periods. And, feel free to rate us. Share the show, like the show, rate the show. We have over 600 ratings, all somewhere near 5 stars. There's a couple haters out there that's bringing our average down, but we appreciate your support. Next week we have a very special guest coming up. I'm so excited about this that I hate to tease it, because if something happens and it doesn't happen, you're going to be very disappointed. But I'm going to take a chance anyways. We are scheduled to have Erica Erickson join us on next week's show. She'll be talking to us about her career, what she's been up to since she left Fox 2. And we're going to try and drag her into a little bit of our foolishness and fun. So come back next week for Erica Erickson. And Mark, what's coming up on the big show, the Drew and Mike podcast?
Let's see. I know we have Sebastian Bach is coming up.
Oh, from Skid Row?
Yep. Nice. And Mr. Skin with his year in review of nudity in film.
And he's going to be talking about guy nudity, right?
What?
So
no.
Something for everybody. Didn't you guys say that he evaluated a nude scene involving a male star in a show? C. Thomas Howell, right?
Oh, we were joking. No. Oh, boy. Okay. No, you're...
This is how rumors get started.
You misheard there.
Oh.
C. Thomas Howell, star of Soul Man. Remember Soul Man, who wasn't...
And The Outsiders.
Yeah, that's right. He was not canceled.
And The Hitchhiker, right? The Hitcher, wasn't he?
You know what? I don't know.
Okay.
The Hitchhiker, you mean the TV series The Hitchhiker? Was he on that?
He might have been the TV series. I think Rutger Hauer was in the movie. Very scary.
But, he did Soul Man in blackface.
Canceled?
No, he wasn't canceled because he's in a new series on Netflix called Oblivion, which is like an action comedy movie where this elite group of U.S. soldiers are trying to save Las Vegas from a nuclear weapon, and they're hammered while they're doing it.
They're in Vegas, right? That's
exactly. The first episode explains why they're hammered, but it also ends with all nude. There's a lot of nudity in the show. So what we were talking about is, he's nude in there, but there's there's 2 females that get nude in the movie or the series as well.
Okay.
But if you like action and comedy, I'd recommend it. I think it's a fun watch.
Does Mr. Skin do fellas too? Because
he has another website that's called, I think, Mr. Man, but he is Mr. Skin. So
okay, because I know a lot of people have talked about Kevin Bacon in the movie with Denise Richards and
Wild Things.
Wild Things, yeah. Another fantastic Matt Dillon. Matt Dillon also in The Outsiders, but what a great Matt Dillon.
His best movie is still Something About Mary.
Oh, with the teeth? Yes. Oh, God.
The scene at the golfing range where he's lying is one of my all-time favorites.
Oh, yeah. And, I think the guy
all I got are these damn Nepalese coins.
Yeah. The guy who steals the show for me is Tucker, the fake architect who's really the pizza delivery man from Encino.
With the accent,
yeah. And he's like, I knew your line when you said you went to Sao Paulo twice. Who goes to Sao Paulo twice?
Such a great movie.
And that guy,
that movie cannot be made today.
He's an English actor and comedian. He hasn't made that many movies, but he's so funny. That's one of those things where you figure Hollywood's just going to say, where's this guy been all our life? And he's going to take off. But it's just... Something About Mary is a monument to.
I need to watch that again.
Tucker.
I've been trying to watch Brewster's Millions again because I love that movie, and I probably haven't seen it in 35 years.
Oh yeah, I heard
it's not available anywhere.
Really?
Yeah. So I ended up watching all the clips on YouTube yesterday, and I forgot Rick Moranis is in there. One of the most ridiculous characters too, the mimic. Have you seen Brewster's Millions?
Maybe when it was first on cable in the 1980s or something.
Yeah, he just plays because Rick Moranis is a real short guy.
Oh, yeah.
And he just repeats everything anybody says. He's a mimic. He's a professional mimic, which isn't a thing.
Oh damn!
No, it's so ridiculous. I love that movie, man. Richard Pryor, not his best, not the best Richard Pryor movie, but still a fun movie.
No, Richard Pryor was great and made some terrible movies. I would have put that on the list, but maybe I should reconsider.
What?
I don't like Jackie Gleason either, so I may have.
He's not in that.
Some
That's the
implicit
toy.
bias. Oh, that's the toy.
Yeah.
That was also
The
Richard
Toy's
Pryor,
great.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah, another terrible movie. And they what's the one with the kid from the military academy? That's
the toy, right?
That's
Yeah,
the
he's
toy?
his toy.
Yeah,
I believe.
Yeah. Also, could not be made today.
No, God, no.
Oh boy. Okay. Well, anyways, that's it for.
It's not our fault.
No, it's it's just the world we inherited.
Wait, before we go, I want to see his filmography because. See,
Richard Pryor?
Yeah, you're telling me his movies suck, and I think there's
no. Some of them are great. Like
See No Evil, Hear No Evil. It's fantastic with Gene Wilder.
Oh yeah,
One's blind,
and Silver
one's deaf.
Streak.
I never saw Silver Streak.
And they were both in the prison movie Stir Crazy. That was a good movie.
Bustin' Loose is a great movie.
That's right. We bad.
See?
Yeah. And he was also in. I'm gonna screw it up again. Bingo Long and the Traveling All Stars and Motor Kings with James Earl Jones and Billy D. Williams and all star cast. That's a great.
Another
movie.
one I haven't seen. Oh boy, I got a lot of movie watching to
It's
do.
based on a short story about a barnstorming black baseball team
Really?
and the adventures they get into. Yeah, it's a great piece of literature and a pretty good movie too. So anyways, I don't know how we got there,
Okay, sorry.
but here we are.
Brewster's Millions.
At the end of our show. Please, if you'd like to donate, please do. If you are interested in talking to somebody about financial advice, talk to Luke and let him know you heard about him from our show. And next week, Double E coming in. Looking forward to it. Until then, thanks for listening. And Cyrus, take us out.
Can you dig that?
Can you dig it? Can you dig it?
Touchdown. Hit those line roads, watch the score. New Orleans Super Bowl. World champ, silver dollar. That's Detroit. Listen to the line roll. Listen to the line roll.